Do you know what a calorie deficit is? This is the most basic thing that you should understand when it comes to losing weight. And as a weight loss dietitian that helps so many other people lose weight, I see this idea of a calorie deficit misconstrued and misspoken about all the time, and I know that it just causes so much confusion. A lot of the reason that people cannot lose weight is because they're just following incorrect information, and I want to be the one to correct what a calorie deficit actually is for you in this video so that you know what to do to be able to lose weight. Now, what is a calorie deficit? Basically, it's just eating less food than your body burns. There are some intricacies of it, as in if you eat too low of a calorie deficit for too long, then you can decrease your metabolism, which makes your calorie deficit impossible. There are different numbers and calculations that you need to have to figure out what your calorie deficit is. I have a free calorie tracking guide, and at the very end of the video, I kind of talk about the best way to figure out your calorie deficit if you're doing it on your own. But I want to go ahead and just say that I highly recommend working with some sort of dietitian, whether it's us in our program or even just somebody you can find at your local hospital, to make sure that you are calculating your calorie deficit correctly. Although there's a lot of information out there about calorie deficits and it seems like you might be able to do it on your own with calculators and stuff like that, it takes a lot of clinical judgment, which basically just means being able to figure out somebody's calorie deficit from calculations, but also from what other clients have responded to, which helps me to provide calories for other people. Just because we have a calculation doesn't mean that that's the be all end all. It's just kind of like a starting point, and then I use my clinical judgment to figure out what somebody's deficit and their macros actually should be. And so this is why I would recommend going to see somebody to help you calculate this, because if you eat too little, then you can decrease your metabolism, which can honestly just make you feel crazy when you're trying to lose weight. And then if you are eating too many calories, then you're not going to be in a calorie deficit and you're not losing weight. If you are not losing weight from what you think is a calorie deficit, then it can start to make you see these other types of videos out there where people are like, oh, it doesn't matter what you eat, you need to eat the right foods, or you need to not be eating foods that are going to cause you to be inflamed, or foods that you're intolerant to. No. Baseline, we need to be in a calorie deficit. If you're not losing weight, it's most likely that you are not in a calorie deficit. So let me get into the 3 biggest misconceptions that I see when it comes to people talking about a calorie deficit. The first one is that you need to be eating below your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. I see this all the time on TikTok. I produce a ton of videos on there, so you can make sure to connect with us over there. But a lot of people are always like, well, my calorie deficit calculation says that I need to be eating 1,200 calories because I'm so short. And then sometimes I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I say, oh, how did you get to that? And they tell me it's because their BMR is 1,300. But that's the problem, is you should not be eating below your BMR. Your BMR is the amount of calories that you should be eating at complete rest. Like if you are unconscious on a hospital bed, getting tube feeding just to basically keep your organs functioning, then that's what they would be feeding you, because you are not doing any extra activity. But talking with your hands, moving your mouth when you talk, thinking about the words that are coming out of my mouth, all are taking up extra calories. So we need to be eating above that BMR. If you eat below that BMR, then you are honestly at risk for malnutrition. This is what causes you to be super tired, because your body's just not even getting the nutrients that it needs to survive. People who severely eat under their calorie deficit, more so getting into like the eating disorder territory, where you eat a very little amount for a very long period of time, can cause your hair to fall out. For women, it causes you to lose your period, all because your body is saying, I'm not getting enough nutrients to do these functions, so I'm going to start figuring out what I need to shut down in this body to keep my heart beating. Pretty scary, right? You need calories to survive. You shouldn't be eating under this amount. And then what I see typically is when people eat very low amount of calories for a very long period of time, because they've been told they should only be eating 1,200 or 1,300 calories, it just causes your overall metabolism to decrease. The way that you can kind of tell this is if you go back to eating normally and you gain even more weight than when you started with the diet, then you likely have a decreased metabolism, which is a whole nother video to kind of get into how to fix that. So first misconception, do not eat below your BMR. Make sure you're not eating 1,200, 1,300 calories. There are very, very special circumstances of why somebody would need this. Honestly, like if you're wheelchair bound, if you're maybe 3 feet, like nobody that I've ever really helped before. The second biggest misconception that I see is that you have got to be perfect every single day on this calorie deficit. And this is a big reason why I see a lot of my clients give up prematurely before working with me, is that they think that the calorie deficit means that they need to be perfect every day. I posted a short a while back that did really well, that I kind of explain why you don't need to be perfect every day. So make sure to go watch that because I'll link it below. But basically, we need 3,500 calories. We need a 3,500 calorie deficit to add up to a pound loss per week is the math behind it. Now, we don't exactly know how many, calories you're burning at all times, but we have a good estimation based on calories. But we take this 3,500 calorie amount, and in order to lose 1 pound a week, that would break down into a 500 calorie deficit every day. 500 calories times 7 is 3,500, so that gives us a pound loss per week. Remember, it's the 500 calorie deficit below your maintenance calories or your TDEE, not your basal. But when we look at what that looks like every day, that means that you don't have to be perfect. Your calories just need to eventually add up to 3,500. And if you want to achieve that over the course of 2 weeks so that you are losing a half a pound a week and are in a 250 calorie deficit, if you want to do that over the course of a month, maybe you don't have that much weight to lose and that you're only in a deficit about 100 calories a day, which is super doable, that's what we need to do to lose weight. It needs to be consistent over time. And then mathematically, you can just think mathematically, you don't have to be perfect because you can just make up for the calories the next day if you want to, or as long, honestly, as that you are underneath your total daily energy needs, then you are going to lose weight. It's just the amount of the deficit that you're within is what is going to dictate the amount of weight that you lose per week. You can still be losing weight over a longer period of time, which means you're in a calorie deficit. But even if you're trying to lose 1 pound a week, you don't have to be perfect every day. And I explain it more in that video, so make sure to go check that out. The third biggest misconception that I see when it comes to people talking about a calorie deficit is that macros are more important, that you shouldn't worry about calories, you shouldn't worry about a calorie deficit, but you instead should be macro tracking. Yes and no. You cannot talk about calories without also kind of talking about macros because they are kind of one and the same. Macros are just a little bit more specific when it comes to calories, but they are very, very similar in a way. I'm trying not to get too scientific with this explanation, but if you want to think of an example off the top of my head, it's kind of like being saying that you bought a house without any rooms in it. Even if the house only has a bathroom and a bedroom, there's still rooms in the house, right? But you would just call it a house. You wouldn't call it a bedroom bathroom. So you would call it calories, but there are macros behind the calories. So to explain a little bit better, if that's not clear, 1 gram of carbohydrates equals 4 calories. 1 gram of protein also equals 4 calories, and 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. So every time you eat macros, you also are eating calories. It's how we measure the energy that's in any food. So you are always going to be consuming and counting macros if you are counting calories. However, you can eat a bunch of one macro and never be looking at another macro. With that calculation I just gave you, you can be eating 1,200 calories of carbohydrates, if that's, the amount of calories you ate that day, and only be eating basically carbohydrates. But you have more success with weight loss if you keep that 1,200 calorie the same, but you look at maybe increasing your protein, eating carbohydrates when you need fiber. So you should be always balancing the calories you're eating and then also kind of fine tuning with the macros, because that's what's going to help you to stay full. That's what's going to help you to stay energized if you figure out how to balance the macros. You're still eating macros if you're not counting them, but it can be helpful to do both. But baseline, we need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. The macros don't matter all that much. They do matter, and we do want to work on them when we are trying to lose weight. I have clients eat a higher protein amount specifically when they are trying to lose weight, but when it comes down to it, and if you go out to eat and you're just overwhelmed, just stick with the calories and try to at least keep your calories in check before getting overwhelmed about the macros, because that's going to have the biggest impact on your weight is if you're in a calorie deficit. I hope that was helpful. I can make another video. Ask me your questions on tracking calories or a calorie deficit, and I can definitely help you because I help other clients with this day in and day out. Make sure to subscribe to get my realistic weight loss tips. You can also check out our podcast, which we put on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Bye.